Dieter, we know each other for over a year now and had several really good discussions in this time. So I'm very happy to having this game changer interview with you today. A few words on your background. You have been working in a Siemens environment in different roles and responsibilities for the last 17 years. Since 2018, you're focusing on sustainability and are at the moment the Vice President Sustainability at Siemens Energy. Dieter.
Thanks very much, Christian. Thanks for having me and very much looking forward to this conversation.
It's great having you, and I would like to start with the first personal topic. You say that you're passionate about sustainability as a business opportunity. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's actually, this question leads me back a bit to 2018, and you mentioned I'm in sustainability since 2018. And when, some 5 years ago, sustainability was very much seen as a risk topic or a nice to have, depending on whom you were discussing. And I mean, it is clear, it is a risk management topic as well. But I would say, at least during the last 2 years, we have a complete change and clearly see there is a customer demand out there. Customers are asking for sustainable solutions. Investors are challenging companies on their sustainability and ESG performance. And therefore, for me, sustainability is clearly something to unleash additional business potential. And this is how I'm really passionate to talk about those business potentials and not about how can we avoid risk. It is really what is the customer need? How can you exactly tap into these grounds? And I mean, there is some legislation out there like the IRA in the US, Fit for 55 in Europe, which is clearly a huge amount of investments are out there, which are required to ensure the sustainable transition. And this is what I mean with business potential and business opportunities out of sustainability.
That's great. I love this attitude, especially as we have a lot of people at the moment thinking about the risk, as you say, thinking about problems that are associated with investments into ESG, so being considered more as a pain point than as a chance to grow and to build something new with it. Yeah?
And maybe there's also a notion of a misunderstanding, and I often see that in the discussions. I remember some answers when you talk about this is sustainable. Yeah, but we earn money with that. And it seemed to be a contradiction, which is ridiculous in my view, because it needs to earn profit. This is the basis for every company, and it needs to be sustainable. So it's not an either or, it's clearly an and.
Yeah. When you think about the topics that you have achieved at Siemens Energy with regard to ESG, with regard to sustainability, what are you most proud of?
Okay, thanks Christian for this question. It's beneficial to briefly talk about Siemens Energy and the history. Because, I mean, everybody might know Siemens, but Siemens Energy is a carve-out from Siemens in 2020. And since then, we are a stock-listed company. We are a member of the DAX family. And that's why I sometimes say we are a startup, but you have to take into account the startup has roughly 90,000 employees and 30 billion turnaround. So it's a huge legacy, and actually, of course, it's also a heritage which we use here. And when we started, still, I mean, we had some experiences in sustainability because Siemens, as you said, has a huge legacy also in sustainability and has been considered a sustainability leader maybe for a couple of years now. But we had to start it from the scratch in many areas. So one of the successes I'm super proud of is when we were carved out, really 8 weeks later, we published our first sustainability report. And since then, we do it on an annual basis to create transparency for our investors. What was also a huge step forward was that we created or that we achieved the SBTi alignment with our decarbonization targets, because also this was clear from the beginning. Decarbonization will be one of the key elements in our sustainability program. And it was super important to get the acknowledgement from the science that we are on the right track. So this is something I'm also super proud of. Then we established the entire sustainability organization. We have a sustainability council chaired by our CEO. We come together on a regular basis to discuss what is really decisive for this company. And that means sustainability is really ingrained in the strategy and reflected in the strategy. And one of those, let's say, elements where you can clearly see that was last year during our Capital Market Day, we had a separate, dedicated session on sustainability, which I also think is a nice reflection of how important sustainability is in this company. So there's a lot of things, and I probably could talk a lot of time more what I'm proud of, but it is really maybe these elements. And last but not least, I'm also super proud of the team, because it's, of course, I mean, I have the pleasure to talk to you, but it would not be possible to achieve all these elements without a really passionate team to drive sustainability in this company.
When we take a look into the future now, so what are the next steps for Siemens Energy along the sustainability path?
Yeah, and this is a discussion currently ongoing, actually, because if you watch in what's happening in the media, also with the competitors, it seems maybe to some extent there's a race towards the greatest ambition. And it would be maybe easy to come up with additional ambitions, even broader, bigger, wider, with a 2050 year next to it. But we decided on a completely different way. We said we have already ambitious targets, and I will come to that. Now it's on deliver along these targets, and this is actually what we see this year and maybe next year as the clear focus. How do we enable this company to work towards these targets, and how do we ingrain these kind of elements into our KPI system and into our steering? So we are currently going through a materiality analysis, by the way, a double materiality, in preparation for upcoming regulation, to make sure that we meet stakeholder demands. Based on that, we will come up with a set of, let's say, KPIs, along which we want to report and create transparency. And not only report, but also steer. And that is basically what we do to make sure that we achieve our 2023 target. So we have one already this year, 100% green electricity. We are on a very good way here, but let's talk about that when we achieved it. Then we have 2025, we have targets. So we accelerated our SBTi commitment on own operations to 2025. So also this is what I would say more near term. And then 2030, all the decarb targets on our scope 1, 2, and 3. I think this is also very ambitious, and we need to make sure that we steer accordingly to make sure we meet.
Very good. You already just mentioned the regulations. So what would you say are the impacts of the newest regulations, like the German supply chain law, but especially also the corporate sustainability reporting directive from the EU on Siemens Energy?
This is really a huge change. This is really a huge change, and I think what happened, it is also amazing if you are in this arena for a couple of years now, how fast-paced this environment is and how fast these kinds of regulations now chip in. I take first a very positive view, because for me, when it is regulated, it is clear that it is important and it will be ingrained in the company. You mentioned CSRD. CSRD will, of course, be a lot of reporting. But how do you get there? You need to ingrain it in your operations, you need to come up with the numbers, and that will lead in the end that ESG data is on the same level like financial data within operational reviews, within operational steering processes. So I think it's a very, very positive development. Secondly, also across companies, it will create transparency. So customers can clearly make a decision at which company I want to buy my products or my solutions, and given the ESG performance, you can make a judgment and maybe better decisions. Same on the investor side. ESG transparency, I think, is very important also for investors, because I tend to say ESG risks are investment risks. So clearly here transparency is a good thing. On the other hand, we need to take into account it is also a huge capacity needed to make sure that you adhere to these principles and these regulations. So this is for me really a question when you look at it from a European perspective, because all what you mentioned is very European-centric. And we acknowledge, of course, ISSB, the International Sustainability Standard Board, are working a lot to make that a global, let's say, change. Up to now, it's European. So somehow we need to take into account and make sure it's not a competitive disadvantage. Because I mean, this is cost, this is capacity you have to put in. Yeah. So this is maybe really a challenge for legislation. And also you need to take into account that it's a good intent, as said, with transparency, and the regulation is going in the right direction. But you must not, with this good intent, you should not overburden the organization, and by that having a counter effect or something like that. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, when I see Siemens Energy, we are a huge company. We set up projects, we have a lot of experts in, they spend a lot of their time to prepare, for example, CSRD. I cannot imagine how smaller companies, mid-sized companies, how they cover that, because it is a huge change in the whole reporting system.
Yeah, absolutely. How did the discussions around sustainability affect organizational cultures in your view?
I think it's a good thing when you take sustainability into account, because in my view, sustainability is a holistic approach, it's a systemic approach, so you have to take into account elements of completely different things that some of the managers might be used to. So a simple example could be in sales. I mean, in the past, sales was clearly incentivized along order intake, maybe profit, maybe both. But now we ask our sales colleague to also take care of the ESG elements. And this is, of course, a different view than people are used to that. But I think in the end, if you take into account what is the effects and what's the impact of the respective projects, and you need to know we are in an infrastructural business, so it's really huge impacts we create where we are active. So if you take that into account and manage those elements, then you come to better solutions. And that's for the benefit, of course, of the customer, but also for us. So I think it's very positive. This element connects maybe to another one, which is innovation. I think sustainability and innovation is to some extent two sides of the same coin, brothers and sisters, however you want to phrase it, but there will be no sustainability without innovation. Because you need to be innovative to come up with better solution, more sustainable solution to really meet the customer demands of tomorrow. And this connects with the third element, so employee engagement. We see with our initiatives on sustainability, our communication around that, how eager are our colleagues to contribute and to make the world a little bit a better place, and by our product and our solutions. And that leads back to innovation, systemic thinking, and so on. So we clearly see that as a very important element, also in terms of retaining today's talent and winning tomorrow's talent.
Which key personality traits do sustainability leaders need, from your point of view?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. It's so many maybe, but the key is curiosity and passion, I think. Curiosity, I think, is super important because, as we said earlier, the systemic thinking and the fast-paced environment. So you really must be eager to learn and to understand other people's perspective, technologies which coming in, regulations which is changing, stakeholder views. For me, it's always beneficial to talk to stakeholders from completely different industries. It helps a lot to understand and to really see what is decisive for the success of the company. So this is what I would say, curiosity. Passion, because it's not that easy. Most of the sustainability colleagues I meet have a strong purpose. They want to really achieve and do something good for the planet. On the other hand, they are in an environment which is maybe not so open for change. So you need to really have the passion to convince people that it's the right thing to do. Otherwise, you will not be successful. You need to convince and win the people for our joint sustainability journey.
Thanks a lot for this great conversation, Dieter. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Christian.